What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the North Leeds Jitz podcast, episode 152. It's been a very long time since we've done one of these. In fact, it was the summer camp when I last recorded.
Oh, 6 months. Well, we've been busy.
We've been very busy, yeah. I think I said it on a podcast a while back. Usually, if everything's going smoothly, that's when the podcasts happen. And then if you don't see a podcast, it's probably because there was a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And this has been a real tumultuous year for us. It's been a fun year for me. I felt like I've developed loads.
I've been awake most nights.
Yeah.
It's been a tough year.
Oh, yeah.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I think it's that kind of like swan analogy. I hope we're going to go into the feedback here, but before we do all that, you normally introduce the podcast and say, and this week we've got Professor Mike. I need to say, this week we've got Professor T. This is the first time. Yeah. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think we've got two professors now on the podcast. Congratulations, man.
I think a lot of the kids will be like, oh, it's Professor Coach T.
I'll still call you Coach T.
Yeah. To be honest, like, the professor term is quite a funny one, isn't it? I quite like the term coach because I feel it more accurately, because like professor is Portuguese for teacher, right?
Correct.
And I always quite like coach because it feels a little less... I don't want to be seen as a teacher. Like, all my thoughts of teachers from school is like, they didn't really care about me, or, they were just trying to, like, here's information, you memorize it, go do a test.
Yep.
And when I think about the people who've really impacted me in my journey, like, they were always seemed more like mentors and guides and coaches, and they cared about, like, longer term growth and development, and weren't just there to, like, give me information. So it's a funny one. I quite like the term coach, but...
That's a really cool insight, yeah. Well, you can still be you are still a coach. You're just a very, very experienced one now.
Yeah.
Which is great.
So, that was cool. We had a great winter gathering. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it. It was a big surprise having Victor there.
Yeah, I've been working on that for 6 months. He's known about that for 6 months. Soaps knew, Sarah knew, and that was it. And everyone else we had to lie to. He was hiding in his car for like half an hour before. Had to sneak him in through the gate, but then they put a padlock on it. So we had to kind of get through this gate somehow and get through the fire escape. So it was a nice surprise. And hopefully a nice surprise for everyone else as well, for you guys. But it has been a difficult year. I think we'll maybe touch on it a little bit, perhaps after the feedback, but it has been one of those years where there's been a lot of change, a lot of challenges from a business perspective and a staffing perspective for us. We've managed through that, but it has been really difficult. But what we do hope is the service that we've offered, and I think it's reflected in the feedback, we've maintained that excellent service. And I'm really proud of that, because it could have gone south.
Yeah.
And it didn't. So that's pretty cool.
I think especially when certainly know that my priorities have not been around the core, like, thing we do, which is coaching. I know my coaching is definitely probably not as slick as it was a year ago, because I've gone back to more foundational things of making sure the business is running well. And since we're like just about getting over this kind of last bit of the hurdle of doing those things for me, and now in 2025 I really want to focus back on my own coaching a lot, but also on making the overall coaching team grow and develop a lot, which I'm really excited about. But let's get into the feedback a little bit. Well, some feedback we had before, from anyone's feedback, was from your wife, which was the winter M.O.T comes around at quite a busy time, so for everyone, and therefore maybe if we switch it to be a little bit earlier or a little bit later, people might have more time to give some responses, which I thought was good insight. We had less responses, which we kind of saw as a positive, because people tend to want to give feedback when it's either amazingly good or it's bad. So in the middle, people will, if it's just kind of good and everything's working as it should be, then people are less likely to give feedback, or they've given feedback before and they don't feel like they need to do so again.
Well, that's the thing. I think we've also, there's so much has happened in the last 12 months. We've also created many more opportunities for feedback to take place. We've got the meet the professor thing every quarter. We've got the meet the coach every quarter. We've got meetings. We've got the JLP thing. We've got a proper academy manager. We've got an extra member of staff. So there's been all these other ways to, being able to offer feedback. So I'm not surprised the responses are down, but I think, again, it is a positive thing.
I think overall people are just feel more empowered to give feedback at any point in the year as well. They don't feel like they need to wait for an MOT. There's Tom Patterson, which we'll go into later, was speaking to me in a study hall, being like, "Oh, when the MOT comes around, I'm going to be asked for open." I was like, "Why don't you just ask now?" So I think, I've had that a lot more of people being like, "Oh, here's a suggestion." So I think that's really good.
It is. The only thing is, of course, when you ask for feedback, and many businesses don't, right? Particularly kind of martial arts academies tend not to ask for this kind of feedback, but we want to get better, we want to improve, want to be open. The challenge, of course, is there are so many people who have got so many great ideas. It's sifting through them and being able to implement them all. So what we will do, we're meeting this afternoon with our Inner Circle team to talk about our next quarter goals. This will directly feed into that. So you should start to see, particularly when there's been certain topics that have been reiterated by many people, if that we see those trends, we will act on them and you'll see those changes soon.
Okay, so let's go into the kids stuff first. There really wasn't many kids responses, and a lot of the people who had responded were very new to the academy, kind of within their first 6 months. So thank you everyone for your responses. We've got like a brief overview here, and first thing that thank you for Ways to putting that all together for us, was around coaching, quality and engagement. So what's working? Parents had a lot of praise for how well our coaches connected with the kids and kept them engaged. Some things for improvement though were, some parents mentioned that they'd like to know a little bit more about the coaching team. And this was great because it's actually something I've got maybe like 60% done. On the website, we're putting together a list of all our other assistant coaches and lead coaches, which is like easily 30 plus. I think it's probably more towards 40 than 30. And getting them a little bio and a picture next to them, which has been a bigger project than I anticipated because chasing 35 odd people for bios about themselves becomes quite difficult, and getting their pictures. But we're almost there. So I'm hopeful that in the new year we should be able to have a webpage with all the coaches on, a little bit about them, and especially for new people come in when they're doing that onboarding process as well, they can have a look and see which coaches are teaching their kids. And I think a lot of people will be very surprised about how what these coaches do outside of doing jiu-jitsu. Like you got university professors, you got leaders in business, you got
opera singers,
yeah, you got like really, police officers, like really great role models for kids to be around.
There is, though, if you go back through, if you are new to the academy and you haven't, because we haven't done a podcast in 6 months, go back through the archive. Many of our coaches have been on as guests on our podcast.
Yeah.
So you could filter through there, find the name.
Pretty much all the lead coaches for sure.
Yeah, and you could listen to them talk about the whole life story. So that's a pretty cool thing to do.
So new timetable stuff. Parents found the additional and advanced classes and smaller age groups beneficial overall.
That's a big change this year, right?
It was huge, yeah. I mean, we started to talk about that in January, and it started to settle down, and now we've already gone to like V2 of it and improved the advanced class and kids comp team offerings, which starts to get implemented from next year. And it's been going well.
So our kids schedule, as we've said before, we're really proud of this. And Professor T was the guy who kind of masterminded this, really. It is the most comprehensive kids schedule in the whole of Gracie Barra. We believe it on the continent, certainly in the UK. You will not find a jiu-jitsu academy in this region or in the north of England with a timetable like this. Interestingly, though, a lot of our programs are already full.
Yes.
We're full, and we've maybe got one space in a few of the others. So that's fantastic for us because we cap our classes, of course, to ensure we've got that great service and the ratios are great, but it's going to get to a kind of 1 in, 1 out very, very soon. Mm-hmm. So just be mindful of that. If you're thinking of your child trying something else, perhaps there's going to be less chance they're going to be able to get back into the program because we're going to have a wait list for most things.
I'd say especially if your child is on a once a week membership, which we don't actually offer anymore. But if you're from Legacy, you're still on there. And if you want your child to train twice a week, which we've put out a lot of reasons why recently, so we won't go over them, you really want to try and do that as soon as possible. not just for their benefit, but there will also be no spaces if they want to do it in the future.
Yeah.
The challenges was that someone mentioned that the transition between classes feel a bit rushed, making things a bit hectic. That's something we've had pretty much from day one here. Yeah. We do have a very quite small entrance into the mat here, and we've improved the efficiency a lot over the years with getting kids to be right into the corner of the mats before their class starts. I think without jumbling classes round, which seems easy, I think, from a parent's perspective, but from like an academy level perspective, it bumps a lot of things backwards, all the way back to coaches then having to leave like at 9:30 instead of 9, which means they're more annoyed at us. One of the things I still think we could improve massively on is parents standing in this little corridor here. It just clogs the arteries of kids getting in. A lot of the time, especially in the younger kids, they see a wall of parents and they get nervous and they go like, "Ooh, I need to like squeeze my way through," and it slows everything down. So what all the coaches will be trying to do, lead coaches and assistant coaches, will be trying to move you out of that area, especially in the transition or prior to the transition between classes. So please don't take any offense to it. It's just so that the kids can get on and off the mats easy. I know you want to see your kids get promoted. Remember, we are going to take pictures of them. If you think it might be a promotion day, maybe try and get in a little bit early. Find yourself a seat on the bench or in the window. Worst case, you can still see them on the screens. We've got another screen this year. That was something new we did, so you can see both mat areas. But yeah, I appreciate it does feel rushed and it does feel tight and it can feel hectic, especially on Saturday mornings. But I think one of the easiest improvements we can do right now is just to help parents spread out a little bit to allow kids to shoot through that gap a bit quicker.
Yeah, and one thing you will not have seen, which happens behind the scenes, is us trying to fix that issue. And so 2 things. We really tried really hard to get the olive branch space downstairs, the big new olive branch last year. We wanted that space because we knew it would be a much better floor plate for our kids to be able to train in. It's ground floor, a lot more natural light, a lot more space for parents. We did everything we possibly could to get that space. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for us. We've also this year spent quite a lot of money investigating if we could get up into the attic to create another floor plate on top. The quote was over £500,000 to make it happen, which we just can't do that as a business this size. So unfortunately, that's not an option. So we have to live within this floor plate. The only other option would be to move location. I don't think you want us to do that. It's the best location possible on Street Lane. So we're going to have to work with the way the building's set up. And I think at the moment, we're probably doing as best we can, save for parents helping us a little bit just to move out of this space here. So thanks for your patience and your support on that.
Kind of stuff that parents talked about being important to them. Parents feel really invested in their child's growth, both on and off the mats. Individualized feedback motivating the kids to push towards their goals could really help though. So something we might look to do is set up some more regular progress updates to help kids on their path. And that's actually something I've already spoken to Soaps about. What that we'd like to do is change from the meet the coach, now professor, from quarterly to being it probably once a month, and have more of the lead coaches take part of that, because as I step away to get more of the third person's perspective into the coaching program, which is pretty much almost there, and I can dip in and out of more classes in the week to get to see more of the kids across the whole timetable. It means that my actual depth of each kid's knowledge is less so. So I think a lot of the parents will appreciate people like Coach Dan and Coach Kev being able to give some more individualized feedback. Yeah,
and of course, if you didn't already know, Soaps, our academy manager, was a teacher for over 10 years, private school teacher, so phenomenal level of experience with child development across all age groups. So she'll lead on that for us, and we'll have a structure. I know with Soaps, we'll have a structure which everyone will follow in terms of giving that feedback. So that's going to come, and that's fantastic.
New initiatives, what's working. There's a lot of interest in new events like Champions Party Night, which unfortunately was supposed to be announced on the Winter Gathering, and I totally forgot. But by the time you see this, I'm sure there would have been a message in the group chat. The Little Helpers program is being really popular. I think we actually have over 30 kids on Little Helpers, and they are quite invaluable to helping our classes run really smoothly. And we put on workshops for them quarterly, so I hope they get a lot out of it. I know a lot of kids have, from being in JLP, have really upped their confidence levels. You know, getting to be a role model for the kids, leaders. That extra bit of responsibility can really help some kids, can't it?
I mean, look, what do you bring your kids here for? If we look at the responses, the free text, most people have selected that they're here for their child's development, both on and off the mat. And if you know us, you know that that's what we're here for, right? We want your child to be the best human being possible, particularly the best young adult. And so being able to give them opportunities to lead at this age. I mean, imagine that if we got that at our age. We never got that stuff. As a parent, you wouldn't have got the opportunities, no way. So it's phenomenal to be able to give our kids that opportunity. And I think we're probably not going to see the impact of that. You will see it initially, but the real impacts will be when they are teenagers, young adults. They're going to be so much more confident, so much more giving, so much more understanding of others. And they are going to be tremendous people. And ultimately, we'll be as proud of them as you will be as well. So it's unique as well, right? I don't know any other academy. I've never seen it. Did you have it in Bondi, anything like this?
A little bit, definitely not as structured as we do it though. It was more of like the couple of yellow belt kids who would come in early and just kind of be on the mats and stuff.
You see it sometimes in gymnastics and stuff, but again, I think the structure behind what we do and the workshops and the connection and the expectations.
I mean, I don't think people realise like how structured it is. We have a full development pathway, basically from a kid 7 years old to having a job at 16, like Joe Dawson's done now, like into lead coaching and things like that. So if you're interested, definitely get in touch, and there'll be even more improvements to that in the coming year. Here's a little bit of a feedback we got, which I thought was good. Everything is fantastic. My only comment where I think you could improve is this. It seems random when the children practice their techniques with coaches. Sometimes Travis will do it four or five times, and sometimes only once. I understand it's quite chaotic in there with lots of other children. The coaches do a great job, by the way, and can be difficult to judge perfectly. But maybe a system in place that children can all practice and an even number of times. Other than that, 10 out of 10. And I thought that was great feedback. And something I've noticed as well, especially bringing on new coaches, I'd love to set up more structure. Like we've got an onboarding process for our new students now, and I think we need a similar thing for new coaches, and that's something I'm going to be working on a lot in the early part of 2025. And usually we'll have a coach, a junior coach, and a group of 6. Sometimes it changes in, let's say, Tiny Champions class when you've got, on a Tuesday, you've got like lead coach and 3 or 4 junior coaches. But doing things like, you've got your big wall of kids, is just assigning each coach like 3 kids, and they can cycle through that a lot easier than being like you, now you, now you, but they just came back. So definitely something we've noticed too, and definitely something we're going to be looking at improving on. So I appreciate the feedback. Yeah,
worth saying as well, this, if you don't know, you probably do, but all of our lead coaches are certified through the ICP process, which is a global process for Gracie Barra. Going through it again now, we do it annually. It's an online course, takes many, many hours to complete. So everyone is certified. But because we're at the scale that we're at, although they go through the GB method, it kind of doesn't cover that kind of stuff, does it?
Yeah.
So we're kind of breaking barriers almost, and as T said, having to come up with our own processes. So that feedback's really helpful. Thank you.
Apart from that, it's the safety and structure. Parents are really happy with the balance between nurturing and maintaining discipline. One parent saying the coaches have a great balance of nurturing and ensuring positive and respectful behaviour. Some challenges around practicing the move safely. Parents saying that as I read the full review, it was as a round's ending, kids try and speed up because they want to get the submission, and sometimes that's when like the injuries happen and stuff like that. So definitely something we'll keep an eye on. And I'm stressing a lot with the lead coaches that they have to give a full safety brief before any kind of specific training or live training starts. Not just with, okay, pause guys and everyone look in, but like a full go back to the technique line or go back to the wall, give a demonstration and then go again. So safety is like my my thing. Like I talk about it a lot, and I'm always looking to make a safer training environment for everyone.
Well, you delivered the Train Safe guide as well this last year. I forget about all this stuff. This has all come in the last year or two. And of course, there are children who we've had to speak to parents about, and we constantly monitor that. I think SOAPS wants to bring in some kind of report card for those children that really are struggling to meet the expectations from a behavioural or a safety standpoint. So you can be rest assured that, again, we're all over that, and we'll be managing that carefully with that child and with the parents. But, I mean, at any one time, there'll be a conversation happening between SOAPS, us and parents to make sure that children are being safe and they're following the standards that we expect from a behavioural point of view as well.
Probably a good time to mention there is like a more structured behavioural process coming into place, kind of like a positive behavioural process. And it'll just much more clearly lay out kind of just the basic expectations of kids, and when those expectations aren't met, like what then happens and what's the process. So kids are more informed what's going to happen, parents are more informed what's happening, coaches are much more fair and evenly distributing their kind of corrections and things like that. So it should make, I think, kids a lot more happy because they'll know their left and right kind of boundaries. Parents a lot more happy because they'll know what happens when those boundaries get pushed, and coaches a lot more fair because they have a lot more structure with how they can give feedback. And that kind of concludes all of the kid stuff. So pretty positive overall, really. There was a lot of positive stuff. We don't want to just kind of blow our own trumpet here, but I want to take just a second to say thank you all, because there's some really long and thoughtful messages in there, and I can tell parents are always really busy, so for you guys to take the time to type all that stuff out is really nice.
Yeah, this is the kind of, I suppose, tip of the iceberg to this in terms of our feedback. Of course, our Inner Circle team, so Way has done a great job at compiling this and putting together recommendations, filtering it out. We've got a number of documents that she's pulled out for us. SOAPS has been through all that. We're then going to discuss it as a team later on today. So this is just a chance for us to feedback, but we've gone through everything. It really does make a difference, right? Like there's always one or two comments that, of course, we've not thought of, and it really helps inform the direction of travel we take next year. So awesome job. Thank you for being a part of what we do.
Okay, parents, if you just came for the kids' feedback, we're going to go to adults now. So I'll see you soon. Okay, so we're going to move into going over the adults' feedback, of which there was about 30 respondents. So again, a nice number. Obviously, we've got, 200 something adults here in the academy.
That feels more than before. Like, I think there's been a few where we've had a bit less than that, so it's quite.
I think the most
nice.
We've ever had is like 70 something, so it's not too bad really. So go over like high level overview first, and then we'll dive into some of the comments as well. So key findings and recommendations from coaching quality, member experience, and community. Some highlights. Members love the coaching team, especially Coach Kev, Coach Sam, Professor Mike, and Coach T. The coaches have been fantastic. This is a quote from someone. The coaches have been fantastic. I love their teaching style, and their classes have been full of information. Really fun. A lot of people mentioned the positive impact UBL has had on their lives, both on and off the mats. A couple of quotes there. And then Way's given us some recommendations, and one of them is spotlight some of our standout coaches. If we look at the Winter Gathering, loads of people are mentioning like Coach Kevin, how much he's been great for
Fruke as well, yeah.
Yeah, I think pretty much all of them got a nod, didn't they? So,
look, we kind of almost just glossed over that there, right? There's a comment there about the impact it's had on people's lives, like not just teaching people jiu-jitsu, but man, I think I mentioned this actually at the Winter Gathering. There's lots of people in the community that perhaps you aren't aware of who have been at absolute rock bottom, maybe even kind of like almost not with us anymore. And they've found our community through word of mouth or through the real charity or whatever it is. And it's fundamentally changed their existence. That's not me and you. That me and T have created this place. We've given the opportunity, but we can't teach every class anymore. So it is our coaches that are doing that. And it's tremendous. It's unbelievable. And so I suppose I just want to say to our coaches, thank you, because you are literally changing people's lives, but also to those people who've chosen us to be a part of our community. It's a special thing, man. And we can brush over that, but actually, like, that's what we're here for. And it's his life-changing stuff.
Absolutely. Next, we're talking about class variety and scheduling. Members want some more flexibility and options to schedule, with Sunday open mats being mentioned numerous times. I think, especially due to a propaganda campaign run by Tom Patterson, which we appreciate.
Fair one.
Yeah.
If you want something, you're going to make it happen. Fair play.
So we'll be talking a bit more about this later, but it's very likely, I'd suggest, that there will be some kind of Sunday offering in the near future. And then maybe look to expand it as it gets more support. I
think we can. We've discussed it before. I think this will happen. We want classes 7 days a week. It just needs to be resourced, so you'll understand it's going to take a little bit of a time for us to get that done. But we hear you loud and clear. We want some on a Sunday. We do as well, don't we? We want an academy that runs 7 days a week. We've just got to make sure it's resourced properly. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many spinning plates when you do things on timetable. Which I nerd out about and like to talk about, but I won't bore you guys with it.
Well, we talked about it just off air, but I think the biggest challenge for us now, given we're a couple of days after the winter gathering where we've now had another dozen blue belts, and there's going to be more students at some point, maybe even soon, if not now, who are in GB2 and GB3 that are in GB1. But up to now, because we've been growing and we want to continue to grow, we've had to have more options for GB1, certainly GB1 every day, so people can come and do trial classes. But at some point, that's going to have to evolve to ensure that our more experienced students get more options to develop in those more advanced classes. That is a real headache, and I'm not sure how we'll do it. I think it's going to have to happen certainly in the next 12 months. We're going to have a bit of a rejig. So we're on that, don't worry. But it's a difficult challenge.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about role, clarity and communication. Some members are unsure who to approach with specific queries. And the newsletter was seen as lacking a little bit of connection and depth. So that's definitely something we'll be looking to update and help. I think we probably do a little bit better job for new members now, especially coming in. Like I said earlier, we've got a whole onboarding process and it kind of lays out whose roles are what, but that has been shaking up and is still being shaken up a little bit right now. So definitely, I suggest early on in Q1, Q2, 2025, there'll be much clearer about who you need to go to for what. We've already made some steps towards it. If you look at the Meet the Team board, it has everything around like who you need to approach for what, and you'll walk past that twice every time you're in here. And we do it on the onboarding now for new members. So I'd expect all the members to feel much more confident with that soon. And the newsletter is something that's still quite new to us. It was something we did like right at the start when you were running it. And I think email strategy overall is something we can do a lot better on. And just like everything, it doesn't happen overnight, does it? So we'll be looking to improve all of that.
We've got our staff members listed on the website.
Yep.
We've got a new M.O.T sign behind the desk, which came in this last year since the last time we did this, which pushes out information about key events and celebrates you guys for promotions. Meet the Team board we've done twice. We're going to have to do it again because, again, there's been staff changes. And I think that underneath this, maybe the fact we've had a number of staff challenges this year within our Inner Circle team has meant that perhaps it's felt a little bit confused because roles have had to be handed over to other people to backfill. So Nicola's left the business now, left the team, but she was off for a significant period of time in the summer and is off again now. That's meant that her roles had to be handed over to Soaps, which meant we had to bring in a new member of the team, which was Sarah. So I get it's confusing, but man, it's been hard work for us just keeping this business rolling. So bear with us. It should be a little bit smoother in 2025. There'll be another Meet the Team board because we're going to have to change it again. But we hear you. We get it.
Female representation. Members noted the absence of female coaches and its impact on accessibility for women. One person saying there's no female coaches, which makes it less accessible for female athletes.
Does this person want to be a female coach? Because every time we do this feedback, we say we'd love to have more female coaches. If you are a female and you want to coach, come and see us.
Yeah. I'm sure Del won't mind. Del says, I really struggled to convince girls to join. Would there be any way to offer female-focused sessions? So we talked a lot about this probably last year. We have every year put on some kind of dedicated female kind of thing, whether that be a female self-defense workshop for free, or in the last 2 years, the GBF program, which we still hope to do in 2025. Beyond that, I would just like any of the GB1 classes to be just such a welcoming place that you wouldn't feel like you would need to have a female-only kind of thing. I appreciate the sport is quite, maybe from an outsider's perspective, is seen as male-dominated and a male thing to do, and therefore it wouldn't really matter how welcoming the class is. If you can't get in the door, then it wouldn't matter. But I think that's when GBF and those kind of things work well.
I'm not a supporter of female-only classes. I think if we do that, you could argue you should have a male-only class. It's quite divisive. I understand it. I think if there was a female coach leading that class, I think that then gives it a much more, you're much more likely to come. But we get asked all the time, particularly from ladies in the Muslim community who can't train with guys for cultural reasons and religious reasons, who want that. We're not going to do it because we are inclusive. It's one of our core values. And that means that we want sexes, races, religions, everyone trained together.
So moving slightly on, technical focus and training enhancements. Members value specific training but feel it can be improved. People tend to go for the win instead of practicing technique taught in a near realistic setting. And there's interested in more targeted instruction like leg locks. So I think one of these people, just going back into the full feedback, was that it was overall quite positive, but they just said, I think they liked some of the ways that I was doing specific training it's with your partner from class, and I'm highly emphasizing the fact that you've got individual goals, but the overall goal is to make the, let's say, bottom player better at jiu-jitsu. So, if you need more resistance, ask for it. If you need less resistance, also ask for it.
Are you doing that in GB1 or just GB2?
All levels, yeah, all the way through. Then the leg lock stuff, I would love to try and, if you could just say some stuff, Michael.
Well, I'll jump back onto the last thing about the female-only training. So one thing we do, and maybe you might not be aware of this if you were a guy, is there is a female-only WhatsApp group. So we have an extra layer of connection between those female students that we have in the academy and the coaches. So there is an extra kind of level of ensuring that any lady that comes into this academy does feel connected and does have that support. So that is something that we definitely do. On the specific training, we're never going to be able to stop people going for the win, because if you've been in this academy more than 2 minutes, you will know that every single specific training, the coach will say at the beginning of that specific training, manage your intensity. Don't go more than 8 out of 10. Try and learn something. We can say this, and we've said it for 4 years, every single class, but we're dealing with human beings in a competitive environment, and ultimately it's always going to happen, unfortunately. You're always going to get the odd people who just can't help themselves. So,
when we go over to the free comments, I'm sure I'll catch that one. Community engagement beyond classes. Members want more opportunity to connect outside of training. It's kind of like a 50-50 where some people were like, oh, there was like loads of good community events this year. I really appreciated that. And some people being like, I'd love more community events, which we will have actually. There's I've got a big push going on right now. And again, we forgot to mention it at the Winter Gathering, but there was a GBRL quiz night happening on January the 18th, which hopefully you'll know about by the time this comes out. But if not, check the WhatsApp group. I'm sure it'll be there or out soon for you.
We're trying to move towards a kind of once a month event.
Yeah, maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks kind of thing. Similar for the kids, we want to run probably once a month for them to just get people connected more outside of just normal training on the mats.
What I would say on that, which I've loved seeing, by the way, is locally there seems to be a bit of a thing on a Saturday morning where people will train, they'll go for a coffee.
Oh, the Randy boys.
The Randy boys, yeah. I know what you call them.
Call
Yeah.
them that.
You don't have to wait for us to have an event. Like, just grab a dozen people at the end of class. Do you want to come for a coffee? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to go for a walk next week? Like, we don't have to facilitate that for you. You guys can do that, and I know you do already. And that's a wonderful way to stay connected, and also to bring in people into that community, because there's always that new person, right? And you remember it yourself, who turns up and doesn't really know anyone. Come on, put your arm around them and take them out for a coffee. It might just make the day.
Some people mentioned interclub stuff. I'm trying to organise with Harrogate, mainly for the kids comp team, but I'm sure we can do it for adults too. Some kind of at least a yearly interclub that we want to put on. Behind that as well, the GB CompNet, which is the Gracie Barra like internal competitions. There's a licensing agreement that's kind of being finalised now, where we may have the opportunity to host our own CompNets, kind of like still locally in club, which I think would be really cool. It would take a lot of work, but it might be something that we look to push to in the future, which means like you may want to support that and then go to CompNet Nationals or maybe even CompNet Europeans. For me, it is like one of the best competitions you're going to go to, because everyone's going to be super friendly, everyone's really welcoming. There's very little in terms of sandbagging, so you're probably going to get someone of similar skill level and things like that. So yeah, keep an eye out for that kind of stuff.
Again, on the competition, sorry, T.
Yeah.
I've seen a drop off of particularly adults competing. Like, we had quite a lot when you see the trophies around the room. First couple of years we were pushing that. Interclubs are great. There's nothing stopping you going and competing locally. There's millions of competitions. So get yourself out there and challenge yourself.
Some members pointed out the maintenance issues and suggested upgrades, with someone saying that the bench could do with being repaired or replaced in the reorg room, which, I think
yes, it does.
could definitely do with a replacement.
We'll
look to get that out. All right, so I just want to move on to some kind of free responses that people left, and we can just roughly talk about that. I'll pick out a few of the goals people are working on. Someone says, my current goal is trying to build my game on the mats. I like to go for different things and ask for advice. Off the mats is more so when I process what I've learned and see what sticks, which I think was good. They go on for a little bit. There was a really good one here, which was someone was like working on things for about 4 months, and then they like switch to something, which I thought was great. So many people, flick through like this thing this week, and having that discipline to say like no to everything else and be like, I'm going to work on this for a little while, I thought was awesome.
Well, I think that's one, whilst the curriculum's fantastic, that is one downside of it, that every week there's something new.
Yeah.
So it is down to you really as an individual to pick something that you want to work on and really, really focusing on that.
Well, I'd say in like the GB3 classes, a few things of like the curriculum's there to, let you know this exists. And when we're drilling it and learning it, you should try and take things from what we're learning and see if you can apply it to the thing that you're currently focused on. There might be like a little grip detail, a concept, something that gives you like the little epiphany for the thing that you're working on can be in a class that's not related to the, let's say you're working butterfly guard or we're doing some like passing, you can totally get, that's just like the thing that I do from the thing. And the other thing is, it's there also as like a little discipline test of, can you remain focused on the thing that you said you were going to do, even when I show you some new shiny objects? So it's a nice way to do that as well.
Yeah, the curriculum has to exist for new people, right? Because they're brand new, so they don't know anything from this position or that position. But as you become more experienced, the learning has to then shift to us giving you information, but you also learning yourself and developing yourself. And that's when you can start to pick big blocks and say, right, and I think 4 months is good. I think 6 months, 4 months, something like that, about right, just to focus on a specific area is great.
Here's the leg attack thing. I'd like to get better at attacking the legs, learning about leg locks. GBRL could assist by focusing on them during classes a bit more, and I wonder if there was a way for GBRL to get more people into the GB3 Nogi classes, so there was a wider variety of people to practice with, as the classes can be quite small, / same people. So I thought there's two things there. One is, or three things. One, for the last 3 weeks, I've been teaching leg locks in GB3. So it was back attacks like last week, and I still figured out a way to do calf slicer and some toe holds and stuff like that. We've been doing like all these kind of like knee bars, toe holds, leg lock stuff in GB3 in the gis. And so many of the concepts that you learn that you can do in the gi like will apply to your no-gi leg attacks, some very similar positions. So don't feel like you will only learn leg attacks just in no-gi, because there's a big part of the game that's still in the gi as well with your leg attacks. Two is, we have tried a lot, I think, over the last 6 months especially, to support the no-gi program. One way we did that was by changing the all levels classes to GB1 classes, which means that they follow the GB1 structure. Coach Sam does a great job of trying to adapt the GB1 techniques into no-gi techniques, and if it's impossible, he'll teach something off of the GB2. And then the third thing is, the GB3 curriculum that Sam teaches on a Thursday night is made by Braulio Steamer, who's probably considered one of the better like leg lockers.
He's got one named after him.
Yeah, he has a leg lock named after him. He has highlight reel knee bars, all kinds of things. So, if you want to learn leg locks and you've got a curriculum designed by considered one of the best of his generation, like it's probably and he's like designed a 16-week program for you to get better in no-gi. Like that's like a good way to build around it. Apart from that, I think study hall sessions are a good one to go to. There's plenty of ways to start learning. I don't think it's another way we supported the no-gi was the challenges we ran. Yeah. We ran a lot of challenges for people to try get to more no-gi sessions. So I feel like we've tried a lot to support it. I think it will still build momentum. Sometimes these things take time, and classes have their own peaks and flows. But in general, we are just a gi-based academy as well. A lot of people, if you look at our demographic of people that come and train here, generally people that are a little bit older. The gi, I think, even as popular as no-gi is now, I think the gi will always be more popular amongst like the general populace, because it sounds weird, but I think people feel safer in the gi, because it's like a layer of literally clothing that stops the connection. I think jiu-jitsu is already super weird. So like if you're in someone's clothes guard, it feels strange if you're the first time. At least if you're not in full spandex, it's like at least a little bit less weird, So I think people coming in for the first time, they want the protection of the gi. Like it feels more formal, it feels kind of a bit traditional. When you're just in like super tight lycra, especially if you're an out of shape dad that's 36, has had kids for the last 4 years and hasn't managed to work out, you probably don't want some super tight clothing on you and everyone looking at you.
It also, you feel safe because you can hold on.
Yeah.
It's like going on a roller coaster, right? And just doing it no hands. That's what no-gi feels like. You're getting thrown all over. You can't really latch onto it. You can hold onto the bar. You just feel safer. You can hold on to someone's gi. You feel safer. And it slows the game down, right? It has an ability to slow it down. It also is way more technical. So we used to say back in the day, if you can roll in the gi, you can definitely roll decent in no-gi. But if you only roll no-gi, you're going to really struggle in the gi, because there's way more options and way more technicalities. I've been teaching leg locks as well in GB3 occasionally. I think we accept in this academy that once you're at GB3 level, so once you're a blue belt, it's okay when you're sparring to be trying those leg locks out. No heel hooks in the gi. Someone did a heel hook in the gi in GB1 the other week. I wasn't very happy about that. So no heel hooks in the gi. Be very, very careful. I was literally talking this morning. I damaged this. I got caught in a heel hook 2.5, maybe 3 years ago with someone who used to do them and wasn't that safe. And it damaged this ligament here. That still hurts me today. So be very, very careful when you're applying them with your partners.
Moving on from goals a little bit, I struggle with evenings, so I don't see Mike or Coach Steve very often. I appreciate their time is more valuable than others. However, what would be great would somehow for there to be a bit more of a mix in the morning sessions. I love GB2 and no gi due to being evenings can't make many. I am trying to work my diary to get more, but I've heard others mention more variety could be good. that's one part of what they said. The other part is in terms of PTs, as in the private training offering that we do, it's a great offering, but would be great if a touch more flexible with payment, maybe block bookings rather than just a membership. A few people have commented that they would like to but can't afford. So, from my side of things there, like mine and Mike's time isn't more valuable than other people's. It's just that we have another layer of things to support the academy. So we both work 7 days a week to make sure this place is as operational as it is. Sometimes that means that we're not on the mats. So I think there's another comment we'll go over, but like on any given day, pretty much apart from Thursday, me or you will be on the mats.
Yep.
Me so a little bit more in the kids program, but they are also like 60% of what this academy is.
And up until recently, I was coming to our morning class every week as well.
So sometimes I have this with Veronica as well. It's like if you don't see someone, they might not as well not exist. So it's like she'll be like, "Does that person even still train?" I'm like, "Yeah, they still train. They just train in the morning, so you never see them. It's not like they don't train anymore." So it's tough. You know, one of the things that allows us to put on such a timetable is the fact that we have great coaches. You know, I think people would be much more upset if they could only train at if we just put evening classes on and the other a couple afternoon classes and me and you were teaching every class. This place would probably fall apart. We would certainly fall apart. We'd be pretty threaders with it after a little while.
Well, that's what happens at most other academies, right? You're not going to get 6 morning classes a week, 6 lunchtime classes a week, 6. You're not going to get that. So that is the trade-off, right? Like we could teach more classes, but there would be less classes because our time only goes so far. So it is frustrating. I do get it. I'd love to train with Victor every single day, but I have to see him once every 4 months and I have to drive 2 hours to do it. Like it is challenging. We get it. We hear you, but I don't see that changing anytime soon, unfortunately, just because there's a finite amount of time in mine and T's life, really. So it is a shame. I think on the morning classes, though, again, we're going to discuss a lot of this stuff later with our team. I do think we need to bring in another GB2. I do think that. Because, again, going back to the previous point we made about the experience level now, more of our students being GB2, GB3 than GB1, we've got to offer more options in the morning for people to progress because at the moment we only have one class and that's on a Friday. So that'll probably happen.
So we got one, unfortunately, I'd say, what they're saying isn't necessarily too much different, but they didn't put they weren't confident enough to put their name down for it. And this was apparently someone who's been training with us for 2 or 3 years. And I felt, I'll read it out.
This is the one. This is the anomaly, right?
This is the one, yeah. I'll read it out, but I think before I do, I'd say, I was disappointed that if it is someone that's been training with us for 2 or 3 years, that they didn't have the confidence just to put their name behind it. Because I actually don't think any of the points they made were super egregious or too far left out of field from what, say, the last comment was. I don't necessarily agree with them, but at least when you put your name behind it, we could at least we could talk to you about it and get how you feel, and then it's more actionable advice, rather than it just seem like someone who's a bit threaders on the day and just wants to vent. Yeah,
it felt to me, and we'll go for it, but it felt to me a bit like it was just designed to try and hurt us.
Yeah.
It may be someone who's leaving or has left. I think it was designed to hurt and stick the knife in a little bit, but we'll read it out.
So GBRL's coaching has decreased in quality significantly since Khalil left. There are fewer and fewer...
Which is a year ago.
Yeah.
And there's been an M.O.T. in between.
Yeah. There are fewer and fewer opportunities to get coaching from T and Prof Mike, with even GB2 now being almost entirely taught by newish purple belts. There are plenty of members who will have never been coached by anyone other than blue or purple belts, and I believe it shows in their development when compared to where longer standing members were at the same stage in their journey. GBRL is the most expensive academy in the area, but if GB3 times don't work with your schedule, your only chance at coaching from high-coloured belts is to pay for semi-private classes, which doesn't sit right with me. With the additional costs associated with being a GB member, it's starting to feel like we're getting poor value for money. So if we break it down into little bits here, GBRL's coaching has significantly decreased in quality since Professor Clear left. I think that's an okay opinion to have. Like, I wouldn't necessarily agree with it. I think I get to benefit from this now since I got a black belt. But there is a strong psychological effect where you will just, let's say I was still a brown belt, right? If me and you teach a class and we go verbatim, exact word for word, techniques the same, it's like identical, people would still assume that your class was way better.
Correct.
Just because of the psychological factor of you being seen as like a black belt compared to a coloured belt. So there's that factor. So it doesn't matter, even if Coach Kev delivered a fantastic class and mine was subpar, you'd probably think mine was better just because of the psychological factors that are in play.
I know Khalil really well. He's a friend of mine, been friends for many, many, many years, training partner for 15 years. And I know when he was coaching here, he coaches very, very close to the curriculum. He's not someone who goes off and gives you stuff that other people aren't going to give you. The warm-up is the GB1 curriculum. He teaches the curriculum. He's a fantastic coach. But he doesn't teach any different content.
Oh, he's by the book. Yeah. Like, I remember one time I was just like walking around and I was like, oh, Khalil, like, it's GB2, you don't have to do the GB warm-up if you want. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I remember Victor one time came in and was like, and he's like, I was like, oh, shit. And then actually that was kind of a bit of a catalyst for me being like, you know what, I'm going to do it like as kind of the GB1 warm-up and stuff like that, the GB warm-up. So there's few coach opportunities to get coaching from T and Mike, with the GB2s now almost being entirely taught by newish purple belts. So if they want coaching from me and you've still got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and usually I'm around, like, well, for kids stuff, like I'm around all Saturday morning, and usually you're around for morning classes as well on those other days, like a Thursday or other. So it's stuff, we can't be there like 24/7 every day. If you want a timetable that's morning, afternoon, and night between two people, it's going to be tough. Like,
it's not going to exist.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's going to be frustrating if you're the guy that trains Saturday morning and Thursday afternoon or something and you don't get to see us very much. But I don't think that means that you're getting like a worse level of service. Like, so I'm pretty critical of how people coach. And trust me, like, my classes certainly weeks on weeks have been like not as good as, say, watching someone else's classes. Just look at how many people gave the nod. Like, we barely got a mention. They went together and everyone was like, Coach Kev is amazing, Coach Frosty's amazing, Farouk's amazing. And we're like, oh man, we're just chopped liver over here.
Yeah. But that's great.
Yeah.
And like, I would ask the question as well. So let's say on that Saturday morning where, because my eldest boy plays football, when he's not playing early, I will try and come to the Saturday morning at 7 o'clock class to support the coaches and to see those different people and start the weekend off good. If I'm sat at the side of the mat, does this person view me sitting at the side of the mat and that as an increased value? I'm not actually coaching. And to the point where if I feel I can add value to the class, no longer will I stop the class and say, here's something new for you. I actually give it to the coach for them to do.
Yeah.
So again, it's this psychological thing. I think it's a really good point that just because we're there doesn't mean it's better. Mm-hmm. It just means we're there.
A good coach is a good coach. Like, and I trust me, I've been, as you have, trained all over the world. I've been to some classes that are dog poop with black belts just being on their phone during the class, like not caring whatsoever. Like, I way prefer to get taught by a purple belt who genuinely cared about my progress than a black belt who was just there just freaking hitting a punch card. GBRL is the most expensive academy in the area, kind of. I mean, we're £5 more expensive right now on an adults membership. That would be the equivalent that you could get at IMA, which is like leave when you want, which is what we have, unlimited membership.
I still think we're underpriced, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But that's something for the future. You've got to look at it in the round, the pricing. You're not just paying for the jiu-jitsu here. You're paying for the bells and whistles of this community. It does have a value to it, and for some people it's priceless. But if we are too expensive for you, there are millions of other places you can go train. You can go train jiu-jitsu in Leeds for £5 every session if you want. You can do that, no problem at all. But it's not going to be the same. But if that's what you want to do, that's cool.
They kind of close it out by saying, with the additional costs associated with being a GB member, it's starting to feel like we're getting poor value for money, but there isn't really much once you are a member here, there's no real additional costs.
That's a subjective opinion,
Yeah.
and I accept it, and it's fine. Like I said, we're not going to be for everybody in what we do, in what we stand for, certainly on price. What you can do, though, if you are a massive fan of Professor Khalil and you are a member here, you go train over at Appley Bridge a few times a month. We'll give you a visitor's card, you go train with him. That is one of the benefits of being part of GB, and perhaps that's worth an extra £5-10 a month. Like when you go on holiday, you pack your gear, you take your visitor's card, you go train somewhere else in the world, probably for free. So I think that kind of covers that. It's a shame that person perhaps didn't feel confident enough to put their own email address or wanted to stick the knife in. It was the only comment that stuck out like a sore thumb with how they rated us and what they thought. If it is you and you're listening, appreciate you doing it. Come and find one of us on the quiet and we'll have a proper talk about it.
Yeah, so it's sad to end on that note, but we read all of these and there was just lots and lots of great feedback. And some people were so nice with their feedback. They were like giving feedback and then be like, "Oh, I can help with this. If you need someone to help with it, give me a shout." So I thought that was really sweet of people. And if we didn't get to your comment, don't worry. We've read them all. We've got, like Mike said, we've got a whole big meeting about actioning some of this stuff today. So it all gets read. It all gets actioned. And I think 2024 was a really developmental year for GBRL, but I think 2025, I'm so excited for the things that are coming your guys' way. I think when we say we're trying to be a world-class academy, I really think that some of the things we're doing, that kind of foundation, getting built now, will be the things that we will be world-renowned for in years to come. So really excited to be on the journey with all you guys.
Likewise. See you in 2025.
Us.